Lieutenant Khazar's tendrils twitched nervously as the holographic display illuminated the scout ship's bridge in an eerie blue glow. The orbital scans of Earth painted a picture that defied everything the Graxthi had learned across 1,000 worlds. This was wrong. All of it was wrong. Run the analysis again, he commanded, his scaled hide shifting colors from its normal confident purple to an anxious green-gray. The ship's artificial intelligence complied, but the results remained unchanged. The planet below them showed clear signs of an advanced civilization, sprawling cities, complex energy networks, and artificial satellites that the scout ship had to carefully avoid. But something was missing, something that should have been there. Commander, his second-in-command, Specialist Vexna, called from her station. I've completed the biological survey. The results are disturbing. Her voice carried the distinct harmonic of fear that all Graxthi recognized. Khazar slithered to her console, his gravitational harness keeping him stable in the low orbit. The data streams confirmed his worst fears. Earth's apex predators, the creatures that should have ruled this world, were either gone or existed in such small numbers that they might as well be ghosts. Impossible, he chittered. Show me historical data. The screens filled with images that made his primary heart skip a beat. Great cats, the size of transport vehicles, gone. Massive bears that could tear through hull plating, reduced to scattered populations. Ocean predators that could swallow their scout ship whole, decimated. What force could have done this? Vexna wondered aloud, her scales now matching Khazar's anxious coloration. No natural disaster is this selective. Khazar focused the scanners on one of the planet's larger urban centers. The readings were clear. Humans. The dominant species had done this, but not through any means the Graxthi could understand. There were no signs of large-scale biological weapons, no evidence of massive military campaigns against these creatures. Look at this, he said, pulling up footage their probes had captured. They live in perfect safety. No walls to keep predators out. No defensive formations. His third heart began racing as the implications became clear. They don't need them anymore. The bridge fell silent as the crew processed this information. The Graxthi had built their empire on their ability to control and direct the most dangerous creatures on any world they encountered. It was their greatest strength, their claim to superiority among the galaxy's spacefaring races. But these humans, they hadn't just controlled their world's apex predators. They'd fundamentally changed the rules of survival itself. "Sir," the sensor officer called out, his voice trembling. "We're detecting something else. The remaining predators. They're being protected by the humans." Khazar rushed to the main display. The officer was right. The few remaining population centers of these great predators were under human supervision. They weren't prisons or control centers like the Graxthi used. They were sanctuaries. "Prepare a Priority 1 transmission to High Command," Khazar ordered, his scales now pulsing with urgent patterns. Classification: Potential Class A civilization threat. As his crew scrambled to comply, Khazar stared at the blue-green world below. The Graxthi had always believed that true power came from controlling the most dangerous forces in nature. But these humans, they had done something far more terrifying. They had made the very concept of apex predators obsolete. "Time to transmission completion," he asked. 3 minutes, sir," Vexna replied. Khazar maintained his gaze on Earth, watching the lights of cities glitter across its night side. In all his years of scouting, he'd never encountered a species that had so completely transformed their world's natural order. The implications were staggering. The Graxthi had always seen themselves as the galaxy's ultimate predator tamers. But perhaps, he realized with growing dread, they had been wrong all along. Perhaps the true apex predator was the species that could not just tame nature, but reshape it entirely. "Message away, sir," Vexna announced. Good, Khazar replied, his scales finally settling into a deep, worried violet. Now we wait, and hope we haven't found something beyond even our understanding. Dr. Amanda Walker pressed her back against the ancient pine tree, her breath creating small clouds in the crisp Yellowstone morning air. Through her thermal imaging device, she tracked the movement of the wolf pack, 7 adults and 3 pups, moving with ghost-like precision through the underbrush. Hidden above in their cloaked scout ship, 3 Grex the observers watched in bewilderment as the human female casually maneuvered closer to what their records indicated should be deadly predators. She's either insane or suicidal, Lieutenant Khazar whispered, though the humans couldn't have heard him through their stealth field. Amanda checked her tablet, reviewing the GPS coordinates of the recently reported grizzly bear activity in the area. The wolf pack was heading straight toward the bear's territory, and she needed to document this rare interaction. Her research could prove critical for understanding how reintroduced predators were adapting to shared territories. She moved silent, as a shadow, years of field experience guiding her steps. The wolves were aware of her presence. They'd known since she started following them, but they'd grown accustomed to her over the months. The alpha female even occasionally looked back, as if checking that their strange hairless observer was keeping up. Impossible, Specialist Vexna muttered from the ship. The predators are acknowledging her as what? A pack member. Amanda paused, raising her camera as the wolf pack suddenly tensed. Through her thermal scope, she could see why. The heat signature of a massive grizzly bear appeared about 100 yards ahead. The bears had been particularly active this season, their population finally showing signs of stable growth after decades of conservation efforts. The aliens watched, expecting a bloodbath, as the human researcher calmly settled into a protected observation position. She pulled out her field journal, making notes as the 2 apex predator species engaged in a delicate territorial dance. Subject pack shows awareness of bear presence, she dictated quietly into her voice recorder. Alpha pair leading pack in strategic withdrawal, while 2 younger adults create distraction. Consistent with previous observed behaviors, indicating learned coexistence strategies. Khazar's scales flickered in confusion. She's studying them. But our records show these species should be fighting to the death. The stronger should dominate or kill the weaker. Amanda continued her documentation as the wolf pack expertly maneuvered around the bear's territory. There was no bloody battle, no brutal display of dominance. Just the complex dance of intelligent species sharing a recovering ecosystem. Her radio crackled to life. Dr. Walker, base here. We've got unusual electromagnetic readings in your area. Anything to report? The Grex tensed, but their stealth technology held. Negative, base, she responded, never taking her eyes off the wildlife drama unfolding before her. But you should send a team to grid reference Charlie 7. The Riverside pack just demonstrated some fascinating conflict avoidance behaviors with one of our tagged bears. As she continued her observations, the aliens above grew more unsettled. Their scans showed no special abilities, no enhanced strength or speed in this human. Yet she moved among Earth's remaining predators with complete confidence. Review her research records, Khazar ordered. Vexna pulled up the data they'd intercepted from the research base's computers. Sir, she's not just observing them. She's fighting to protect them. Her research is about preserving these predators, understanding them. Look at these conservation proposals, these rehabilitation programs. The wolf pack began moving away from the bear's territory, their coordinated movements speaking to generations of inherited knowledge. Amanda followed at a respectful distance, her notes capturing every detail of their behavior. I don't understand, Khazar said, his confusion evident in his color changes. Why would the dominant species protect those they've already defeated? Where's the strategic advantage? As if in answer to his question, Amanda spoke again into her recorder. Today's observation further confirms that with proper protection and understanding, multiple apex predator species can coexist in restored habitats. We're not just saving individual species, we're rebuilding entire ecosystems. The Galactic watched in silent awe as the human continued her work, completely rewriting everything they thought they knew about predator and prey, dominance and survival. Perhaps they realized they had gravely misunderstood what made a species truly powerful. The grand chamber of the Galactic High Council erupted into chaos as the holographic display showed yet another example of human interaction with Earth's predators. Elder Zixtal's scales flashed a deep crimson of outrage as she watched a human child fearlessly petting what their records identified as a domesticated dog, a creature whose genetic ancestry traced back to one of Earth's most successful pack hunters. This is an abomination. The elder's voice resonated through the crystal chamber. These humans haven't just defeated their predators, they've transformed them into companions. The 12 council members writhed in their gravity couches as more images flooded the display. Massive marine predators performing complex behaviors on human command. Great cats lounging lazily in protected reserves. Ancient hunting species reduced to entertainment in something called a circus. High Commander Arxtor slithered forward, his usually pristine black scales now mottled with anxiety. The scout ship's data is conclusive. These humans have achieved what we thought impossible. Complete dominion over their world's apex predators without using any of our methods. Show us the historical progression again, demanded Council Member Nixav, her scales shifting to the deep blue of scientific inquiry. The timeline materialized before them. It started with early humans, physically weak and vulnerable, yet somehow surviving among creatures that should have eradicated them. Then came the first great shift, the wolf domestication. Observe. Arxtor pointed with a trembling tendril. They didn't break the wolves' spirit like we do. They befriended them, offered food, shelter, and partnership. The council watched in horror as the timeline continued. Species after species either fell to human expansion, or, more disturbingly, chose to accept human protection. Even now, with their technology capable of destroying these creatures easily, humans instead chose to preserve them. What of their control methods? Elder Kexti inquired, his voice quavering. Surely they must use some form of neural suppression or biological conditioning. A junior scientist approached, her scales a nervous green. Honorable elders, we found no evidence of such technology. They use something far more powerful: understanding. They study these creatures, learn their behaviors, and then they adapt their own behavior accordingly. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Galactic had built their entire civilization on their ability to dominate and control dangerous species. Yet here was a race that had achieved far more through methods they had never even considered. There's more, the scientist continued, her color deepening to a worried teal. Our analysis shows that human methods of interaction with predator species are more stable than ours. Where we must constantly maintain neural control over our beasts, their domesticated species willingly remain loyal without any technological intervention. Elder Zixtal rose from her couch, her scales now pulsing with the sacred pattern of prophecy. We have made a terrible mistake. We thought ourselves the greatest predator tamers in the galaxy, but we were wrong. These humans, they don't tame predators. They transform them. The holographic display shifted to show Dr. Amanda Walker again, now treating an injured wolf pup while its pack watched from a respectful distance. The scene was incomprehensible to the Galactic worldview, predator and prey working together for mutual benefit. We must act, High Commander Arxtor declared. If word of this reaches our controlled worlds, if our subjugated beasts learn that such relationships are possible, It would be the end of our empire. Nexiv finished, her scales fading to an ashen gray. The council chamber erupted in urgent discussion. Some called for immediate military action against Earth. Others suggested studying human methods for their own use. But deep in their hearts, each council member felt the same creeping fear. They had just discovered a species that had transcended their greatest strength, and done so in a way they barely understood. As the debate raged on, the hologram continued to play, showing humans and Earth's remaining predators coexisting in ways that defied everything the Graxthi had ever known about the natural order. Their greatest nightmare wasn't that humanity had defeated these creatures. It was that they had found a better way to live with them. The emergency alert blared through the Montana Wildlife Research Center at 3 a.m., jolting Dr. Amanda Walker from her brief rest. She grabbed her field kit before the second ring, already moving toward the command center as reports started flooding in. "Talk to me," she called out to her team as she burst through the doors. The monitors showed chaos. Multiple human-identified species had appeared simultaneously in remote areas across 3 continents. Sarah Martinez, her lead field coordinator, pulled up thermal imaging from their network of wildlife cameras. "We've got something big in the Rockies, Doc. Nothing like we've ever seen before. It's taking down full-grown elk like they're rabbits, high above Earth's atmosphere." The Graxthi War Council watched with anticipation. They'd released their most effective weapons, apex predators from a dozen conquered worlds, expecting to finally see human civilization crumble in terror. Amanda studied the footage, her eyes narrowing as she analyzed the new predator's movement patterns. "Look at the way it stalks. Quadrupedal, but with specialized front limbs. Probably evolved on a high-gravity world. Get me a vehicle and alert the field team. We're going out there." "Doctor, with all due respect, that thing's already killed everything it's encountered," Sarah protested, but she was already preparing the equipment. 2 hours later, Amanda's team had set up a forward operating base near the creature's last known location, the predator, which they'd nicknamed Shadow Leap for its distinctive hunting style, had left a trail of destruction that any first-year tracking student could follow. Initial assessment. Amanda asked her team as they reviewed the data from their sensor array. Dr. James Chen, their behavioral specialist, pointed to the pattern of attacks. "It's not just hunting for food. The spacing between kills, the excessive violence, this is territorial marking behavior. Someone dropped this thing here expecting it to establish dominance." The Graxthi observers shifted uncomfortably in their cloaked ship. Instead of panic, these humans were treating their deadliest weapon like a research project. Amanda nodded, already formulating a plan. "Set up the acoustic barriers according to the attack pattern. Whatever this thing is, it's used to being the loudest voice in its forest. Let's change that dynamic." Over the next several hours, her team worked with military precision, setting up a network of advanced sound equipment. They weren't trying to trap the creature. They were creating a communications network. "Movement," Sarah called out. The thermal imaging showed their visitor, easily twice the size of a grizzly bear, moving through the trees with impossible grace. Amanda stepped forward, activating the acoustic system. The forest filled with a complex harmony of sounds, a mixture of Earth predator calls modified to match the frequency range they'd detected from the alien creature. "What are they doing?" Lieutenant Kazar demanded from the scout ship. "That beast is programmed to kill anything that challenges it." But to the Graxthi's astonishment, the creature paused. The sounds weren't challenging it. They were speaking its language, telling it that this territory already had an established order. "Look at its response to the modified wolf howls," Amanda said, making notes as the creature displayed previously unseen behavior patterns. "It's not just an apex predator. It's a social pack hunter from a world where cooperation was essential for survival." The alien beast, programmed by the Graxthi for maximum aggression, found itself facing something its controllers had never considered: an ecosystem that was speaking back to it. "Ready the tranquilizers," Amanda ordered, never taking her eyes off the thermal image. "But hold until my mark. This isn't about dominance. It's about integration." As dawn broke over the Rockies, the Galactic War Council received an impossible report. Their ultimate weapon wasn't just being contained. It was being studied, understood, and gradually calmed by a species that should have been its prey. In the growing light, Amanda Walker stood at the edge of the research perimeter, watching as the most dangerous creature in the galaxy began to learn a new way of existing, not through force, but through understanding. The real work, she knew, was just beginning. Dr. Amanda Walker stood before the reinforced observation window, her eyes fixed on the alien predator they'd named Shadow Leap. After 3 weeks of intensive study at the specially constructed containment facility, patterns were finally emerging that no one had expected. "Play the morning feeding session again," she instructed the control room. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the massive creature's interaction with the automated feeding system. Behind her, Dr. James Chen marked notes on his tablet. "Look at that hesitation before it takes the food. Classic signs of conditioned response. Someone trained this animal to associate feeding with pain." The Galactic observation team watched from their cloaked position, their scales shifting through shades of disbelief. The humans weren't just studying their weapon. They were unraveling years of careful conditioning. Amanda traced a pattern on the glass. "It's not just feeding behavior. Watch the way it moves when the acoustic systems activate. There's a flinch response that doesn't match natural predator instincts. This animal was broken, not trained." In the habitat below, Shadow Leap moved with a grace that belied its massive size, but Amanda had learned to see the signs of past trauma. Every sudden movement, every loud sound triggered micro-expressions that told a story of systematic abuse. "Dr. Walker," Sarah called from her station, "we're getting similar behavioral patterns from the other sites. The Australian team reports their specimen shows identical stress responses to audio stimuli." The Galactic Lieutenant Kazar felt his third heart skip a beat. These humans were dismantling their entire control methodology, not through force or technology, but through simple observation and understanding. Amanda moved to the central display, where data from all 7 containment sites scrolled past. "They're all the same," she muttered. "These aren't natural behaviors. This is systematic trauma response. Someone's been mass-producing traumatized predators." In the habitat, Shadow Leap approached the environmental enrichment devices they'd installed, puzzles that would challenge a natural predator's intelligence. For the first time, the creature showed interest rather than aggression. "Begin Protocol Echo 7, Amanda instructed. Soft, rhythmic tones filled the habitat, sounds they'd developed based on the creature's own vocal patterns. The response was immediate. Shadow Leap's muscle tension visibly decreased. "It's working," James breathed, watching the biometric readings. Cortisol levels dropping, serotonin production increasing. "We're actually reaching it." The Galactic observers exchanged alarmed glances. Their neural control methods were being countered by something as simple as understanding and compassion. Amanda activated the facility's global communication system. "This is Dr. Walker to all sites. We're not just dealing with displaced predators. We're looking at victims of systematic abuse. Adjust all protocols to rehabilitation standards. Priority is now recovery, not just containment." Over the next several hours, teams across the globe implemented the new approach. The results were staggering. The alien predators, once thought to be mindless killing machines, began showing signs of complex social intelligence. "They were never meant to be weapons," Amanda said, watching as Shadow Leap successfully completed a problem-solving task. Someone took highly intelligent pack hunters and tried to turn them into something they're not. No wonder they're so aggressive. They're trying to fight their own programming. In their hidden ship, the Graxthi felt their certainty crumbling. Generations of their species' superiority had been based on their ability to control the galaxy's most dangerous creatures. Yet here were the humans, not just resisting their weapons, but healing them. "Send word to the Council," Khazar ordered, his scales a pale shade of defeat. "The humans, they've done it again. They haven't just survived our attack. They're undoing centuries of our work." Below, Amanda Walker pressed her hand against the glass as Shadowleap approached the window. For the first time, the creature's eyes held something besides rage or fear. There was recognition, intelligence, and perhaps even the beginning of trust. "That's it," she whispered, a smile playing at her lips. "You're not a weapon. You never were. And we're going to help you remember who you really are." Dr. Amanda Walker was reviewing the latest behavioral data when her computer screen flickered unexpectedly. The lab's secured network display suddenly filled with strange, crystalline symbols that shifted and reformed into English text. "Please help. What you're doing, it's changing everything." She immediately hit the security alert, but another message appeared. "Wait, I'm a Graxthi scientist. What you've discovered about our control methods, it's making us question everything we thought we knew." In the hidden research vessel above Earth, young scientist Mixful trembled at her own boldness, her scales shifting between fear and determination as she sent the unauthorized communication. "Prove it," Amanda typed back, her years of research experience warring with her natural curiosity. "Show me something about these creatures we haven't already discovered." The response came quickly. "The neural pathways you've been mapping in Shadowleap, they're not natural evolution. They're our manipulation. But your methods are undoing centuries of our work in weeks." Amanda leaned back, her mind racing. "The trauma patterns, the systematic behavioral modifications, you did this to them." "Yes," Mixful responded, her tendrils shaking as she transmitted the truth. "But your approach, it's achieving something we never could. True cooperation instead of forced submission." In the lab below, Shadowleap was completing another cognitive test, showing problem-solving skills that should have been impossible according to their initial assessments. "Why are you telling me this?" Amanda asked, though she was already recording everything for analysis. The alien scientist's response held a note of desperation. "Because our control is failing. Not just here, across every world where we've implemented our methods. The creatures are becoming resistant. But your way, it's sustainable. It works." Security teams had already surrounded the lab, but Amanda waved them back. "Show me," she typed. "Show me everything." What followed was an unprecedented data dump. Files appeared on her screen showing the history of the Graxthi Empire, a civilization built on the systematic subjugation of other worlds' apex predators. "Our greatest shame," Mixful transmitted, "is that we never considered another way. We thought dominance was the only path to power, but look at what you've accomplished with Shadowleap in just weeks." Amanda studied the files, her horror growing as she understood the scale of the Graxthi's actions. But something else caught her attention: recent reports showing increasing failure rates in their control methods. "Your system is breaking down because it's fundamentally flawed," she replied. "You can't maintain forced control forever. These are complex, intelligent beings. They learn, they adapt, they evolve." In her hidden chamber, Mixful's scales shifted to the deep blue of scientific truth. Yes, and now they're learning from Earth's example. Every world where we've established control, the creatures are beginning to resist in ways we've never seen before. Amanda looked through the observation window at Shadowleap, who was now calmly interacting with the environmental enrichment tools they'd provided. "Because you never tried to understand them. You just tried to break them. Help us," Mixful pleaded. "Your methods, they're not just more effective. They're right. the way things should be. Before Amanda could respond, alarms blared through the Galactic ship. Her communication had been discovered. "They're coming," Mixfall transmitted frantically. "But remember, you're not just changing these creatures. You're changing us too. Some of us want to learn." The connection cut off abruptly, but Amanda was already moving. She had all the data she needed, and more importantly, she had confirmation of what her research had suggested. Their methods weren't just rehabilitating these creatures. They were showing the galaxy a better way. She looked at Shadowleap again, seeing now not just a traumatized predator, but a symbol of something much larger, the possibility of change, even in a system that had perpetuated itself for centuries. "Well," she said to the creature, who watched her with increasingly intelligent eyes, "looks like we're not just running a wildlife rehabilitation program anymore. We're starting a revolution." The Galactic High Council chamber had never been so still. The massive holographic display showed feeds from a dozen worlds, and on each one, the same crisis was unfolding. Their controlled predators were breaking free, not in violent rebellion, but in something far more threatening: conscious choice. "Play the Earth transmission again," Elder Zixtal commanded, her scales a sickly gray of despair. Dr. Amanda Walker's image appeared before them, standing confidently beside the now docile Shadowleap. "To the Galactic leadership, your empire faces a choice. We've discovered your presence, your methods, and most importantly, your fundamental mistake. You built your power on breaking spirits. We built ours on understanding them." The council watched as she demonstrated their rehabilitation protocols, showing how Earth's teams had transformed their most dangerous weapons into cooperative research partners. "Your control is failing," Amanda continued, while Shadowleap calmly performed complex problem-solving tasks beside her. "Not because your technology is flawed, but because your entire approach is wrong. These beings were never meant to be weapons." Lieutenant Khazar, now recalled from Earth, slithered forward. "The humans have transmitted their methods to every world where we maintain control. The creatures are learning, choosing. Some are even actively seeking human guidance." "Impossible," Elder Kexti burst out, his scales flashing angry red. "Our neural controls are absolute." "We're absolute," corrected Mixful, the young scientist who had first contacted Amanda. She had been granted amnesty in exchange for her knowledge. "Look at the data from Centauri Prime." The display shifted to show their oldest control center. The great beast pens were empty, their occupants now gathering around human-inspired environmental enrichment zones. The creatures were displaying complex social behaviors that should have been suppressed by their neural programming. "We face complete collapse," High Commander Arxtor stated, his color shifting to decision-making purple. Unless we adapt," Mixful finished. "Dr. Walker has proposed a solution. An interstellar wildlife conservation initiative. We transform from controllers to custodians." The chamber erupted in debate, but Amanda's voice cut through as the recording continued. "Your empire stands at a crossroads. These beings you've enslaved are awakening, but they don't seek revenge, like Earth's predators before them. They seek balance. We're offering you a choice. Join us in understanding them, or watch your power crumble as they choose their own path." On the display, feeds from 100 worlds showed the same pattern. Creatures once bound by Galactic neural control were displaying new behaviors, forming complex social groups, even attempting communication with their former masters. "The humans are right," Mixful said, her scales now the rare gold of prophecy. "I studied their methods. They don't just work. They create something sustainable. Something better." Elder Zixtal rose, her ancient frame trembling. "In all our history, we never considered that true power might lie in understanding rather than control. We thought ourselves the galaxy's greatest predator tamers. But these humans, they've become something far greater. The council watched as more reports flooded in. Their carefully maintained control centers were transforming, not through violence, but through choice. The creatures they'd enslaved were choosing Earth's way, and with each choice, the Graxthi's power diminished. Call for a vote, High Commander Arxtor declared. We can either fight a losing battle against evolution itself, or we can evolve with them, Mixful finished. Dr. Walker's initiative doesn't just preserve these species, it preserves us too. We just have to choose to change. As the council prepared to vote, they watched one final feed from Earth. Amanda Walker stood in a field, surrounded by both Earth predators and their once-controlled alien beasts, all coexisting in a harmony the Graxthi had never thought possible. The message was clear. The age of control was ending. The time for understanding had come, and with it, the Graxthi faced their greatest challenge, not conquering nature, but learning to live in balance with it. The vote was about to begin, and with it, the future of not just their empire, but of every species they'd ever tried to control, hung in the balance. The United Nations Assembly Hall buzzed with an energy unlike anything in human history. Representatives from every nation sat alongside towering Graxthi delegates, their scales shimmering with anticipation as Dr. Amanda Walker took the podium. Behind her, on the massive display, live feeds showed similar gatherings on a dozen worlds across the galaxy. 6 months ago, she began, her voice steady despite the historic weight of the moment. We discovered we weren't alone in the universe. But more importantly, we discovered that the greatest power isn't in domination, but in understanding. Shadowleap, now a symbol of this new era, sat calmly beside her. The once deadly weapon had become a bridge between species, its intelligence and gentleness, a testament to the power of rehabilitation over control. The Interstellar Wildlife Conservation Initiative isn't just about protecting species, Amanda continued. It's about redefining what it means to be an apex species. The Graxthi built an empire on control. We showed them something stronger: partnership. In the audience, Mixful's scales glowed with pride. She had been appointed as the first Graxthi chief of scientific cooperation, her early risk in reaching out to Amanda now recognized as the catalyst for change. Today, we sign more than a treaty, Amanda said, gesturing to the document before her. We establish a new understanding of our place in the cosmos. Earth will serve as the central hub for the galaxy's largest wildlife preservation and rehabilitation program. The screens behind her showed the changes already taking place. Former control centers transformed into research facilities. Alien predators, free from neural suppression, forming complex social groups. Graxthi scientists working alongside human researchers, learning to connect rather than control. High Commander Arxtor slithered forward, his scales now the peaceful blue of acceptance. Our species once prided itself on taming the galaxy's most dangerous beings. We now know that true strength lies not in breaking spirits, but in nurturing them. As if to emphasize his point, Shadowleap gently nuzzled Amanda's hand before turning to acknowledge the Graxthi commander, a gesture that would have been impossible under their old methods of control. The initiative will establish preservation zones on every world where these beings were once controlled, Amanda explained. But more than that, we're creating a new model of coexistence, one that recognizes the intelligence and rights of every species. The assembly watched in awe as live feeds showed the first joint human Graxthi research teams beginning their work. On world after world, creatures once used as weapons were learning to trust, to cooperate, to return to their natural states while maintaining peaceful relations with other species. We've learned something profound, Amanda said, her voice carrying the weight of this universal truth. The most dangerous predator isn't the one with the sharpest claws or the strongest neural controls. It's the one that chooses not to use its power for dominance at all. As she spoke these words, a soft chorus of calls echoed through the hall. Earth's wolves, now partners in the initiative, singing in harmony with the deeper tones of their alien counterparts. The sound symbolized everything they'd achieved. Different species, different worlds, choosing to work together. The future we're building isn't about who's the strongest, Amanda concluded, looking out over the historic gathering. It's about who's wise enough to understand that true strength lies in protection, not predation. In understanding, not control. The treaty was signed to thunderous applause, but the real victory was already evident in the changes taking place across the galaxy. The Galactic were learning to be guardians instead of conquerors. Their former weapons were becoming partners in research and conservation, and humanity had proved that their greatest achievement wasn't in defeating nature's most dangerous predators. It was in learning to live in harmony with them. As the ceremony concluded, Amanda stood with Shadowleap and her team, both human and Galactic, looking out at the future they'd created. They had discovered that the true apex predator wasn't the species that could dominate all others. It was the one that chose to protect them instead. The age of control was over. The era of understanding had begun.